your support for the Untold Radio Network family of shows and join in on the conversation by using super stickers and super chats on YouTube. Got a question you want answered? Ask it live via a super chat and get real-time responses from our show's knowledgeable hosts and guests. Help keep the Untold Radio Network shows running strong. We need your support. Send your super chats and stickers now.
Hello, world.
And here we are.
Here we are on Untold Radio. We're down south Anomalies.
We are.
And we always state every week, but we are broadcasting on stolen land, part of the Gadigal people, the Eora Nation. We wish to pay our respects and acknowledgement to elders past, present, and emerging. Thank you for tuning in, ladies and gentlemen. This is episode 84.
Yes, it is.
And you know the world we're living in, the not-so-brave new world, the 1984 world.
Yeah.
We all need to keep calm. But let's go back. Aspasia,
Yes.
recently when the revelations hit in 2017, Lou Elizondo, ATIP, the UAP, Arrow, NASA, the Pentagon, the hearings, the whistleblowers. We just said to ourselves,
they're jumping up and
we're
down.
exasperated in an exasperated way, which I
Yeah.
think who we're talking about today was always slightly exasperated.
Well, he was exasperated from the beginning.
From the very beginning. So haven't we been here before?
We actually have, and a long time ago.
And
a
they
real
just
long time
keep
ago.
doing this to us.
Yeah,
They
it's
take us
like-
right to the tip of the
Yeah.
cliff face,
Yeah,
hover us over by the legs,
yeah, but they
and then pull us back in at
dangling-
the last minute and say, you can't
dangling us,
see that.
and
You
then
can't
they
see
just
that.
reef us back, and then it all goes quiet again because the hearings, they've done the hearings now. The hearings are
Not all
over.
of them. They're all, I mean, those
Yeah,
things
but
go on
you know
forever.
what? Once that hearing, once they came out, and it was like it's all prosaic.
I think that a historical
There's
review
no-
was the thing
yeah.
that put the nail in the coffin
There's
for me.
nothing. There's nothing to see here, folks. Just move along
So
again.
haven't we been here before? Donald Keyhoe, the father of ufology.
That's right. He is the father of
He
ufology.
is the founding father of
He
ufology.
is.
Before Stan Freeman,
Yes.
before Ralph Blumenthal,
Yeah.
before Leslie Kean, before J. Allen Hynek, before Jacques Valley, before Steven Spielberg and
Mhm.
Close Encounters of the Third Kind, before the term UFO
Mhm.
was actually put into place
That's right.
by the astounding Edward Ruppelt,
Mhm.
Report on Flying Saucers, before UAPs, ATIP, Arrow, NASA, even Space Force,
Yeah.
before the extraordinary
Before everything.
Leonard Stringfield,
Mhm.
not quite before Ray Palmer,
No.
around the same time,
Mhm.
around the same time as Kenneth Arnold, but not before Sir Francis Chichester.
No.
He was signing things here much earlier, and not
Absolutely.
before the astounding Charles Fort.
Yeah.
And credit being the first to actually, Donald Keyhoe is the first to actively suggest in the mainstream media that we were all experiencing a cover-up.
Highly credentialed.
Incredibly confidential. A Marine major
That's right.
from the Navy, not part of the Marine Aviator, actually.
Yeah. How does
from
that
the
work?
Navy. Well,
Marine aviator.
do not ask me questions like that.
Okay.
And
Unless you're landing a fighter jet on an aircraft carrier. That's
and with all due respect to Ross Coulthard, David Grush, David Fravor, Ryan Graves, every other whistleblower that's come forth, and they're extremely courageous. They're astounding people. But we need to go back because this is 74 years ago when the first book was published. The article was 49 in True magazine by Donald Keyhoe that flying saucers are real.
so
74 years ago,
Donald
this
Keyhoe
same thing was happening.
was saying the same things that in 2024 at the hearings, people are saying same things. Nothing's changed.
I mean, this book was a revelation.
Yeah.
You know, people in 1950, it didn't matter what was written in the book. If it was a book that was not fiction, they would believe it was real.
Yeah.
And here you have someone on the inside stating that these objects are real and quite possibly extraterrestrial. He really put the ET hypothesis out there based on knowledge from inside the military-industrial complex.
That they could be a threat to the national security.
Now, one of the most astounding things is in 2023, a brilliant researcher who I don't believe, and I could have got this wrong, who's never penned a book before, decided it was important that after 73 years, the Donald Keyhoe actually get his own book, his own biography. No one had even bothered to do that.
Yeah.
Which, is that a dereliction of duty on behalf of the early ufologists?
Oh, who knows?
Or is this part of the ongoing suppression of material? So after 6 years of work, Linda Powell has written what is allegedly, I haven't read it, I don't own it, but we have it coming in the mail right now. We're purchasing this book.
Yeah.
She has written the definitive biography on this astounding major and his battle to end UFO secrecy. 74 years of ongoing research, and no one has ever written a bio on him. I cannot believe it.
Well, they've finally done it now.
Yeah. And it is so detailed. It is so amazing. A marine aviator. Let's have a little look at Linda there. Okay. There's Linda. You can actually go to this new Thinking Aloud and check her out. They've done a great interview about 2 months ago. I'm just stepping down to pick my notes up. Go to that first book by Donald.
Okay. So this book here, Flying with Lindbergh. This. Okay, so this is Charles Lindbergh, who was, he was an influencer back in the day.
He was a real influencer. I think he did the first solo flight.
He did the first solo flight from London.
To New York, isn't it?
New York to Paris.
I'll just check that in a moment.
New York to Paris it was. Or was it? Yeah, New York to Paris.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It was New York.
Check it out for yourself. Don't believe us entirely.
Yeah.
That's why we put a disclaimer at the beginning here.
We could have stuffed it up. But,
yeah.
That wouldn't be the first time. But he was very, very, and he is, of course, the father of the Lindbergh baby.
That was an interesting. Tell us, that's another little sideline
that's one of those mysteries. But it's see, this is the thing. They're all these people, all connected. They're always connected in one way or the other. But Charles Lindbergh, the Lindbergh baby was kidnapped. Yep,
his child.
And it was always a mystery. They found someone who
there was a ladder put at the window or something.
Yes, and they left it there. But there was some money that was part of the ransom that was spent by someone, some immigrant from, I think it was Czechoslovakian or Hungarian or something, one of the Middle Eastern bloc country, Eastern bloc countries. Sorry, not Middle Eastern, Eastern bloc countries. And he'd spent some of the money that was earmarked as being money for part of the ransom. So they got onto him, but they couldn't prove anything. There wasn't enough, proof, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so it's always remained a mystery. But then somebody not so recently did a whole thing on it and
an investigation
and found that the Lindbergh baby was maybe a little bit special.
Right, it would have been good for Charles.
And it wouldn't have been
profile.
Charles. Well, because
he was the Rambo of his day.
But back then too, it was like, what kind of stock do you come from? There was the whole eugenics thing happening, and are you from good stock? And you can't have this guy who's Charles Lindbergh, this national hero, having a child that's not up to scratch.
Plausible.
And so there was some sort of, because it was a very weird, circumstances.
You have really digressed.
I have, but hey, this is all part of it.
So Lindbergh, I think that in the early
Donald was his PR.
He was his publicity officer. I think he arranged for public conferences and lectures and appearances.
He was on the circuit, Charles Lindbergh. He was huge back in the day.
Just after the First World War in Guam, Donald Keyhoe was injured.
Yes.
And had to have a sabbatical and rest up for a while. And that's when he started writing as a hobby.
Yes.
Yeah. And his writing was so impressive that he ended up writing in a lot of the pulp magazines. Let's have a look at some of these covers from Donald's work.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, this stuff would be used against him when he came to write serious non-fiction UFO books. These stories were used against him, going, you know.
Why?
Because saying, look, this guy had a history in pulps, so and maybe he's writing from that perspective.
Okay, all right, yeah. Dr. Yen Sin, The Mystery of the Dragon's Shadow.
So around this time, he was working for the Department of Commerce and became an editor of their bulletin. Herbert Hoover loved his work. Freelance, he started working for True magazine. He wrote aviation articles for them. But during this time, he actually created these characters that all these books are going into reprint, and I'm sure they're in public domain, some of these. And it should be turned into like some sort of film series, because he had this Captain Philip Strange. Do you know about this character he developed?
Yes.
Now, that character had incredible mental abilities and ESP, but was also an agent.
Yes, he was.
I think of British intelligence. I'm not too sure. Someone can clarify that for me. And which reminded me so much of that great ITV series that you and I loved years ago.
Ah, yes.
This one, The Champions.
Oh, man, if you can get a hold of this series, it's awesome.
1968, I think it is. It only lasted for 30 episodes.
It did, but they're great. 30 great episodes. So these three agents, I know, but just quick, I would have been finished by now if you hadn't interrupted me.
All right, that's fine.
So these three agents, they crash in the Himalayas. They're pretty badly beaten about, and this group of people, special people, come in and grab them, take them back, fix them, surgically, and plus enhance their abilities. So they come back and they have these mental abilities that are really elevated. So they've got like ESP, they can hear each other talk in their minds, they've got extrasensory
and they
perception.
were like from Shangri-La, weren't they?
They were. They went to Shangri-La, the people from so it's an amazing, unfortunately it only lasted 30 episodes, but they're great 30 episodes.
So I've at least counted with the 5 major UFO books spanning 2 decades, I have counted there's at least 27 books and probably literally hundreds of short stories written by this astounding gentleman, Donald Keyhoe. So I think what we should do first off here, just to show the strength of Keyhoe, is there is a great Mike Wallace interview. And I take it Mike Wallace is a bit of your Edward R. Murrow, but down the rung a little bit, and one of those hosts in the 50s. But let's just, if you're not aware of Donald E. Keyhoe, which I'm sure most ufologists are, you need to punch Mike Wallace interviews Keyhoe. This is from 1958, just after he was involved in that infamous incident with the Armstrong Circle Theatre.
Yes.
And you can actually find that on YouTube as well.
Yep.
Just the audio. In which he diverted from the script, which had been ratified from within inside the military-industrial complex. And because he did that, they attenuated his mic and then cut the signal.
Down. I know.
And that is true suppression.
The television station went off air. The show went off air.
Let's get a little take of Keyhoe in the round.
All right. Now, let's go at it from another point of view, if I may, the Air Force point of view. They agree, undoubtedly, objects have been seen in the sky. But the Air Force has said time and time again, and this is a quote from Richard Horner, Assistant Secretary of the Air Force for Research and Development, all but a small percentage of these reports of unidentified flying objects have been definitely attributed to natural phenomena that are neither mysterious nor dire, end quote. Weather balloons, mirages, ordinary sky phenomena like meteors, airplanes themselves. What about that?
I'll answer that, but I'd like to make several points doing it. In 1947, the Air Technical Intelligence Center at Dayton, the top Air Force intelligence men and scientists under contract, sent a secret document to the commanding general of the Air Force saying that whatever these things were, they were real. In 1948, ATIC, the same group, sent a top secret estimate to the commanding general, Hoyt Vandenberg, said these were interplanetary spaceships. In 1952, there was an intelligence analysis of the maneuvers of these things, as seen by radar, triangulation, radar photographs, and in 1953, the Central Intelligence Agency and the Air Force had a special panel of scientists meet at the Pentagon to tell them what to do. And after they got through, this group said, You don't have proof that these things exist, not scientific proof, but you have a very strong circumstantial case. We suggest you quadruple the investigation, set up special observation posts. In the meantime, release everything you've got to the American people. Now, you've got 4 documents there that they've been sitting on all this time. Now, and they have been spending a lot of money investigating flying saucers. If they don't exist, why the money? Why did the intelligence teams rush out every time there's a sighting?
Yeah, why?
I mean, you've got to take that in, people.
It's there.
It's there.
That was right at the beginning.
And this is screaming at you.
This is a whistleblower right at the beginning. I mean, how many whistleblowers do you need?
And this is someone with inside
yes.
at a time when they were just trying to acclimate themselves to this thing that had exploded.
I think they were trying to work out what to do and how to go with it. And they, unfortunately, I think they chose the wrong way to cover it up.
The clarity of Keyhoe is on par with anyone that has come forward.
That's right.
And should not be dismissed. And if we look at it historically, we must realize what we're actually witnessing today has been repeated right at the beginning of the mainstream accepting there may be a possibility to this incredible phenomenon. Now, the one thing that kicked Keyhoe off prior to the 1950 publication of his book was the Thomas Mantell case, which was January the 7th of 1948.
Yeah, that was a very famous case.
It's an incredible case. And it's a very sad case considering that the family literally found out through the neighbors in the street that this incredible aviator, a very decorated, well-respected, fearless aviator at 25 years of age, a father of 2, had done something that they were dismissing as, well, J. Allen Hynek said initially it was Venus.
Shame on him.
And then Hynek came back and said the Venus, when we've looked at this, Venus was not even that strong in terms of its emitting of light. It's a pinpoint in the frigging sky to begin with.
Here's the thing. This guy is given these millions of dollars worth of equipment, you know, Air Force equipment, these planes to test flight and fly, right? He's got to be, you know, like at the peak of his game to be able to do it. And so then you get somebody like J. Allen Hynek and others coming out and saying he got confused. He thought he thought Venus was whatever it was.
Well, again, Hynek came back with the second time round when he realised he'd blown all that stuff.
Badly.
Was that it was a weather balloon? One of these,
you know, and what? So this
not weather balloons.
This captain, this Thomas Mantell
radiation testing
couldn't tell the difference between some vehicle that he was chasing and couldn't keep up with, that it was a weather balloon. He couldn't tell the difference between a weather balloon and a UFO. Is that what you're telling me? That this guy, at the peak of his mental acuity, was like confused with Venus and a weather balloon? You need to get some new people in there, man. You know what I mean?
It's the same sort of insults that are thrown.
Well, they're total insults because the guy was highly decorated. He was a crack pilot. He was amazing.
He would know the difference between
Of course he would.
Yep, all right.
Of course he would. I know the difference between Venus, a weather balloon, and something that doesn't belong in the air.
This object evidently had already appeared over an airport and an air traffic controllers, right?
Yeah.
And they were military. They had 3 generals. It was so jammed with military personnel.
You couldn't move in there.
They were watching it rotate. They were watching it stop and start and go back.
And this is why they called Thomas Mantell.
Exactly.
They put the call out to chase this thing down. Now, even those generals couldn't tell that this was, if it was a weather balloon, they mistook a weather balloon. I mean, what is going on? None of this rhetoric that they're putting out there makes any sense. These generals and the air traffic controllers saw this thing. It was either Venus or a weather balloon, and no one could tell that that's what it was.
And what a shame on Mantell's career to actually have that statement on his children, on his family.
Yeah, the way he died.
And no real proper investigation as far as they were concerned. The wreckage you're seeing here became.
But here's the thing: as soon as that they heard that Mantell had crashed, all the generals everybody was gone from the observation tower, because then they could say they didn't. Yeah, that's right. They didn't witness anything. You see, they weren't there. They never saw anything, so they didn't have to write. They didn't have to write the truth, or they didn't have to lie about it.
And that's got a little taste. You can go up on YouTube and catch an amazing series from the late 80s, early 90s, produced by the one and only Fonz himself, Henry Winkler,
yes,
called Sightings.
Sightings was an amazing series.
Would actually go into the field and reinvestigate, and they did with Thomas Mantell, a case that was believed to be absolutely prosaic until they found evidence that it wasn't.
Welcome to Sightings. I'm Tim White. No one knows exactly what Thomas Mantell was chasing the day his P-51 fighter plane crashed in Franklin, Kentucky. For nearly 50 years, his family has searched for the truth, and Sightings has tried to help. First, by uncovering wreckage from Mantell's plane, and now by introducing his children to the man who heard Tommy's very last words. Carla Wohl reports.
On D-Day, June 6, 1944, Captain Thomas Mantell Jr. proved just what kind of a pilot he was. He received the Silver Star and Flying Cross for heroism and extraordinary achievement in flight after he successfully towed a spy glider across enemy lines. After the war, he opened up his own flight school and served in the Kentucky Air National Guard. He was a devoted husband, a loving father, and the first confirmed casualty of a military UFO confrontation. The identity of that UFO has never been revealed, and the family that Tommy Mantell left behind still have nagging questions that prolong their grief.
The Air Force has been absolutely no help at all. They have told us absolutely nothing. They sent nobody out to talk to my mother when this happened. It may have been 48 years ago, but not knowing still hurts.
The day Tommy died, January 7th, 1948, the air traffic controller at Godman Field was Quentin Blackwell, the man who heard Captain Mantell's last words. Now,
okay.
Okay, gee whiz, sorry, we went to a still and that confused me a bit. There's Tommy's wreckage. Go up online and check out Sightings, Thomas Mantell. There's actually at least 2 bits where they go and research. They actually uncover wreckage and they find radiation still on that those years later. But I just wanted to give you a taste of that to show you the toll on the family members there. Actually, if you can go back to the videos, we're actually looking at the son there, one of the sons. Yeah. But the grandchildren, now go to this little piece here and then I'll go into this case very quickly.
That one there?
Yep. Thank you.
Mystery Monday.
That's what I remember most is the noise it was making.
January 1948, near Franklin, a military jet crashed. A Kentucky National Guard airman killed.
The very first individual to be a casualty of a UFO incident.
And our country's perception of UFOs forever changed. What made this dedicated World War II pilot lose control? Adam Weiner investigates. LEX18 News, Mystery Monday at 6.
The astounding thing is that's quite recent, and that actually involves the grandchildren, not just the children. So this saga of suppression and getting some peace for that incredible aviation hero has actually just gone on forever. Now, as you heard stated there, that was Godman Army Air Force Base. That was the control flight operator that actually states in that sighting interview. And the reason why we're going on about this is the case that really clicked Donald Keyhoe from being a skeptic into not so much a believer, but one of the most meticulous researchers. And James McDonald would actually say his files were second to none.
He wanted the Air Force and the authorities to actually
infuriated.
Well, he wanted them to investigate it properly.
He also knew that they knew. They knew something. And that's what got his blood boiling. And he never stopped. He never stopped from 1950 to 1988. He was 91 years of age when he died. He stopped writing books in 73, but he was still haranguing them. He harangued them.
It was a thorn in their side.
Ross Coulthard, Leslie Keane, Ralph Blumenthal, George Knapp, our hipster man that did Area 51. They don't know what haranguing is about until you actually hear Donald Keyhoe. He's a great haranguer. He's a great man of exasperation. But one of the most important things to consider about this case, it wasn't just him flying the P-51s. He was in a squadron, I think there were 4 of them, returning them.
That's right.
And he actually ordered 2 of those planes down.
To go, yes.
And why did he order them down?
To go back and get the guns.
Hot guns.
Which means they're going to fire on this thing.
Yeah.
He totally believed.
This thing was 200 meters. In width, 70 meters high, 70 feet.
He kept saying it was brushed metal. It was, he was describing it. It was not Venus, and it was not a hot air, but a weather balloon.
It was an alloy color.
Yeah, he was chasing this thing.
So go and look up Quentin Blackwell, who, after years of actually signing that non-disclosure order, broke it just before his death and came on and courageously did that great piece for sightings. And go and look at those sightings episodes. They must not be forgotten. They've never been put out on DVD or digital.
Another incident that pushed Keyhoe into, jumping up and down and saying this needs to be investigated was the 1952 incident over the White House, the buzzing.
That was huge.
You know what I mean? That was like,
that was huge. But before we run away with ourselves here, and you know what? He had a window of opportunity there where everyone was like, well, maybe we should bring this out.
Yeah, maybe we should. But they didn't.
Should have, could have, closed, shut within about 6 months. But he was on the in crowd.
Yeah.
He had a relationship that the army despised entirely with Edward Ruppelt, who was the head of Blue Book.
Yes.
And it actually reached a point where their friendship was destroyed.
Right.
By the Air Force because it wasn't good for public relations.
No, it wasn't.
Well, let's go back to Ken Purdy, the editor of True Magazine. And True Magazine is one of a billion male magazines from that time.
God, I love the covers of these things.
Oh, they're incredible, aren't they?
Yeah, they are.
So, in 1948, Ken Purdy had heard about Mantell and thought this deserves more investigation.
Yeah.
Keyhoe was already there. And Ken got behind Keyhoe and said, look, don't worry about the aviation articles at this stage.
Let's go.
This is really getting the readers. Yeah. And they reckon this article he did, which is the beginning, what became the book later on, became... No. If Ruppelt made this statement or I'm making this statement or whatever.
Yeah.
But this became one of the most read articles ever in history.
In the man's
Not
magazine.
in True.
In history, really.
One of the most well read out. Well, this is 49, right?
Yeah.
Kenneth Arnold sighting 47. Yeah. Roswell 47. No one was speaking about Roswell.
Yeah, except the people in Roswell.
Yeah, but
a little bit until it got shut down.
They were ready to explode on it. And this, you've got a major from inside the Marines coming out and actually stating that he is aware from in the hallowed halls of the military industrial complex that this phenomenon is real.
Yep.
This article went through the frigging roof.
Right. Okay.
Oh, sorry about that. P-51 Mustangs that they were flying back, Mantell's crew. All right. So that is astounding, isn't it?
It is.
Okay.
Where are we going next?
Okay, let's go to his books, Aspasia. Look at these books.
Well,
and we need to...
the flying saucers are real.
I think that's 1950. I've just dropped some paper here. So,
did you?
Yeah.
I thought you threw them down there.
Oh, that's... You really killed me.
Or did they?
So the flying saucers are real, 1950.
Yep.
Let's go to the next one.
Yep.
Just keep moving through.
I'm moving.
Flying saucers from outer space.
Right.
Now,
yeah,
I need to find my notes on this because Bill Chalker, who is part of our, he's been on Down South Anomalies twice.
Yes.
His history as a ufologist goes way back into the 70s.
Yeah.
He's one of the most well-respected Australian ones. He writes a brilliant blog based on his book, The Oz Files. Just put in Bill Chalker into the net, The Oz Files, and write in Against All Odds. He's written the most beautiful review.
He's done a great review of that.
On Linda Powell's book. on Donald Keyhoe. And there's some curious fallout that links right back to this country, Australia, involving defense scientists we heard about in that
we
episode.
Spoke about him, yes.
And that episode with Bill is episode 36 of Down South Anomalies on Australian UFO crash retrievals. Some of the curious fallout involving defense scientist Harry Turner and federal Australian Minister Richard Casey with Keyhoe's book, Flying Saucers from Outer Space. Now, it is one of the most beautifully laid out blogs you'll ever come across, brilliantly written, meticulously researched.
Yes.
And you need to look at that. We're not going to give away a spoiler.
No.
But it is so fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely.
The Keyhoe had these, so there were numerous other covers you could have gone there to, Aspasia. And I'm just jumping all over the place.
All right.
Because I had to repeat, they did some nice different covers.
Keep that's
going.
Nice. I like that. Yeah. Yep.
And around the same time, Keyhoe had started to pick up lots of steam, was going on.
Yeah.
He went on Long John Nebel, who we did an episode on his program. But he also went on the beautiful Betty White show.
Betty White.
And did an interview with her. She was a stunner. She was a great singer.
She's Greek. She's from Greek origin.
God, I believe that entirely, considering what I've lived through.
I did love her as Rose Nyland in The Golden Girls.
Yeah, it's something I hear repeatedly in this house.
I know.
I might as well be living
in Miami. Anyway.
Let's not even talk about that.
Yeah. We have that one?
Yes, okay. Well, give me the date of that one. The Flying Saucer Conspiracy, 1955. Now, if this didn't seal it with a kiss, what would?
Yeah, exactly.
Here is this guy printing books when they have brought down the lock. At the same time, Clarence Green film from 1956, which you need to see, everyone.
Okay.
UFO, the true story of flying saucers.
Yep.
Which has the Tremont, Utah and Great Falls, Montana film analyzed by the Air Force in the first print that goes out, stating that they're real UFOs.
Yeah, I know. But then retracting after that.
Well, they retracted it. It was heavily influenced by Ruppelt's book, Report on UFOs, and both those things were retracted and abridged, and Ruppelt died.
Yeah.
What was going on there?
Okay.
UFO's top secret is 1960.
Yeah.
And you know what? These books, few of them are in public domain. Please don't go and spend a fortune. You will find them everywhere because they were very popular books.
Yeah.
And then finally ending up with this one in 1973, Aliens from Space, the real story of unidentified flying objects.
Yeah.
So
that's not I don't really like that cover.
It's a 70s cover.
I know.
It's
horrible.
Anyway.
It is. It's horrible. What can you do? I'll do it.
Okay, thank you. Just stay there. Just follow my cues.
Yes, I'm following your cues.
So, American Marine Corps naval aviator, just an astounding man. So, started writing these UFO books in 1950. Right from the beginning, his main thrust was that the Air Force and the CIA were covering it up. It became a battle at one stage there in the public arena, served out in the media between him and the Navy, the military, and the government. It's history repeating itself. I mean, this is just like what Leslie Keith's been going through, and all he was screaming for was transparency. But in 1952, in July, now that book needs to be burned. Can you take the image off the screen? But I'm keeping it because it is really important. Here we have an original hard copy cover from 1966. You can actually witness this guy going up and go in the most convoluted way. No, we are not hiding anything. It's all prosaic. And that's what this book is. But if you go into the back of it, there is a bevy of frigging documents. If you have a sighting, you've got to write out
Fill out the document.
Like that pimple on the back of your knee.
Why?
So, exactly.
Well, if they're not real, why would you have all those,
Yeah. We need these examples.
Right. Okay. That's them jumping up and down, denying, and in that trying to deny that, the answers are in there.
Oh, always.
They're so transparent.
Keyhoe's book was a big influence on the Ray Harryhausen.
All right.
Earth versus the Flying Saucers. What a beautiful film this is.
It would have been.
In many ways. And it translated to many different countries. Extraordinary.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh boy. So let's actually go to this little press conference from 1952 when General Stanford is forced to address the fact that there'd been a flyover of multiple objects witnessed by radar, witnessed in the air, intercepted, doing the most bizarre maneuvers, appearing, disappearing off radar. Yes, let's go to the first one.
I am here to discuss the so-called flying saucers. The Air Force interest in this problem has been due to our feeling of an obligation to identify and analyze to the best of our ability anything in the air that may have the possibility of threat or menace to the United States. In pursuit of this obligation, since 1947, we have received and analyzed between 1,000 and 2,000 reports that have come to us from all kinds of sources. Of this great mass of reports, we have been able adequately to explain the great bulk of them, explain them to our own satisfaction. We've been able to explain them as hoaxes, as erroneously identified friendly aircraft, as meteorological or electronic phenomena, or as light aberrations. However, there have been a certain percentage of this volume of reports that have been made by credible observers of relatively incredible things. It is this group of observations that we now are attempting to resolve. Our basic difficulty in dealing with these is that there is no measurement of them that makes it possible for us to put them in any pattern that would be profitable for a deliberate, custom sort of analysis to take the next step. We have, as of date, come to only one firm conclusion with respect to this remaining percentage, and that is that it does not contain any pattern of purpose or of consistency that we can relate to any conceivable threat to the United States. We can say that the recent sightings are in no way connected with any secret development by any agency of the United States.
Major Keyhoe, as author of the book Flying Saucers Are Real, what is your opinion of these new sightings of unidentified objects?
With all due respect to the Air Force, I believe that some of them will prove to be of interplanetary origin. During a 3-year investigation, I found that many pilots have described objects of substance and high speed. One case, pilots reported their plane was buffeted by an object which passed them at 500 miles an hour. Obviously, this was a solid object, and I believe it was from outer space.
All right,
Yeah, that's a picture.
All right, let's get rid of that picture. Gee whiz, sorry about that. I think that picture's just there. Thank you, Aspasia.
That's right.
So you can see there the tenacity of Donald Keyhoe, and also that whole notion that we're hearing now, well, they're not a threat to national security, but I suggest they are a threat.
I don't know. Buzzing Air Force bases is pretty much a threat to national security, isn't it?
Yeah, going over the top of nuclear ICBM silos and readjusting the launch codes.
Yeah, that's...
Also, the other thing is having pilots fly close to them and then end up dying.
Yeah, well...
But I'll just show you. This is 1952. This received huge press. This was massive at the time. And at this time... Keyhoe was friends with Ruppelt. He was friends with Al Chop, the press secretary, who is the protagonist actor in the docudrama, which is UFO, The True Story of Flying Saucers. You need to see that film. It's in public domain.
It's on YouTube.
It's probably one of the most important UFO documentaries ever made and that most people are unaware of. And the reason why it didn't work in the day, it had no flashing effects, did it?
There was no UFO.
But look how seriously they were taking it. I found on AIP some footage just before they rolled to Stanford, all right? Let's look at this. So you can see there that already were making a mockery of it on the set that day where they were filming it. And this is what you have to contend with all the time.
Yeah.
So what we do is let's go to...
Why do you believe that the Air Force says that nothing is going on? Why do you believe that it's a fairly serious charge that
I know
you make.
it is.
You make the charge that the United States government is withholding from the people of the United States certain very important information. Why? What would their motive be for withholding that kind of information from us?
Well, I'll answer that, but I would also like to show you some proof that they are withholding it. The reason that was given to me when they were working with me back in 52 and 53 was, first, that they were afraid of hysteria. Remember the Orson Welles show way years back when he scared people into the hills with the idea of invading Martians? Then they were also afraid that it would upset organized religion. That was a smaller factor, but there was some fear of it. Later, they were afraid that these accidents, when interceptors had chased these things and had been lost or had crashed, might be considered proof of hostility. Now, I would never have put my name on anything if it were a matter of personal opinion. I've talked to and read the reports of hundreds of pilots and radar men and guided missile trackers who've seen these things, and some of them are very important names. The Air Force says they have this down to 1.9%, but you'll notice the word current in there. They mean we are currently explaining. Now, I have in my possession a copy of Special Report 14, which is their Bible on this. In the back, it has a table showing that 3,201 cases they examined, 19.5% were unsolved, and they admit they still are unsolved. You add up what they've had since then, it makes over 12% of the reports, and those are mostly from the best possible sources.
Yeah, and he is stating it all there. You need to go and look at Mike Wallace. It's only about a half an hour, and you can find the best copy. There's multiple ones on YouTube.
Yeah.
It is so enlightening.
He was on everything, wasn't he? He was going to anyone that would listen to him
to
tell them about it.
Yeah, he was exasperated, he was frustrated.
Yeah, absolutely.
He was furious.
Yeah, for sure.
So it was 1953 when the Robinson panel, where all this just shut down.
Yeah.
Shut down completely, and still is that way
now,
even today with our revelations in 2017.
Yeah.
And I think it was at that point, with that flyover, they thought, well, we shouldn't even be making statements about landing on the White House lawn because I think they literally did it for the last 2 weeks.
Because they are.
So another thing that really infuriated him was that he formed NICAP, one of the very first, up there with APRO by Coral Lorenz, one of the very first civilian UFO organizations. And Keyhoe was the director. He took over, oddly enough, from the Maverick T. Townsend Brown. That's a completely other story.
Yeah.
Who he was suspicious of that might have had links to the CIA. Now, I think his officers were infiltrated to the same extent that Jim Garrison's
everything
were
and
down
everyone,
in New Orleans.
Everything and everyone was infiltrated by the CIA.
But you know what was happening to him at that time?
What?
Is the contactee movement surrounded him
and
started to drown out his signal.
Sure.
He was a voice of clarity.
Yeah.
He was a voice of common sense in the media. And then all of a sudden you have people that I suspect were big charlatans like George Adamski.
Yeah.
Now, that's not to discount all contactees. You can't. Leo Sprinkle and other great researchers have told us you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
No, you can't.
But you can throw out that amateur astronomer on the steps of Mount Palomar into the rubbish bin.
Who's that?
Laura Mundo Adamski. She was being hit on by the guy.
But listen, I truly believe that Adamski did have a sighting.
Like Billy Meyer or something.
And
then
first,
thought,
and then
I can make money out of this.
The problem with that, this phenomena is that it's not on call.
No.
So if you see it and then you say, I saw it and I want to show you, you can't, because they're not going to come to you whenever you want them to. It's going to happen on their schedule. And so people that have seen it and really want to let everybody else know about it sometimes resort to fudging. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that
I think
their
Adamski
initial...
could be fudging right from the beginning.
Well, okay, maybe he was, but I know where
he caused a lot of difficulty for Keyhoe.
He did.
And Keyhoe was a sympathetic individual.
Yeah.
If he thought that they actually had film footage that needed to be analysed, he would actually waste his time on a lot of them.
Yeah,
and believe me, there was a lot of fraudulent stuff occurring at that time.
For sure.
So yeah, I at moments in my most paranoid heart, I feel like, did they actually sort of bring, like, you know, Dave McGowan's hypothesis on Laurel Canyon with the musicians of the 60s? Did they actually bring the contactee movement into the world?
Well, you could
surround Keyhoe's
to muddy the waters, and that would have muddied the waters, because I've heard a lot of contactee stories and stuff, and some of them are really, you know, like really out there. But, you know, all these years down the track now, I can't dismiss everything outright. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
This film, you need to go and track down.
It's on YouTube.
It's in public domain. It's on YouTube. I've said it 1,000 times in this cast.
Yeah.
Clarence Green, the producer, had an incredible sighting. Thomas Mantell kicked him over as well. Mm-hmm. But you know the other thing that's so astounding about this film?
What's that?
Is the director Winston Jones.
Oh, yes.
He did that really bizarre film on television early in the piece called The Twinkie or something.
Yeah, The Twonkie.
The Twonkie. Sorry, I'm always getting it wrong.
That's okay.
Someone needs to do some research into him. Yeah. I'm not sure what's going on there.
Maybe
but
that's you.
I cannot find out much information. It's like Wheeler Dixon with the wild, weird world of ghosts.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, God, I love that documentary, but it's a nightmare.
And, you know, the other thing, too, is a lot of these people that were in the military, you know, leave the military for a bit, go on some film set or write a book, and then they go back to their day job. You know what I mean? Which is really, really weird.
Once you're in the company, you're always in the company.
Absolutely.
Now, there was the Tremont, Utah film and the Great Falls, Montana film.
Yep.
One of them was filmed by a naval photographer.
That's right.
Newhouse.
Yes.
Here's a tiny bit of that. Now, he reckons that when this was taken for analysis, the first analysis by the Air Force saying it's truly anomalous, they actually cut most of the footage out. What we're going to give you is a much better version of this. You're probably looking at this going, why are we screening it? You see those little white dots, very similar to a lot of the footage coming out of South America. He saw multiple objects.
Yeah.
Him and his wife, I think, saw multiple objects.
So many of them. Yeah.
And we'll get a clearer look and analysis in his testimony towards the end of this podcast. But this is one of the things that actually tripped Keyhoe evidently over to go, hey, and you know, back then you're shooting on 16
you can
mil,
really
standard
see them
8,
now,
Super 8.
you? Yeah.
You can analyse this stuff much better than digital, and it can't be fudged as easily.
No, not back then anyway.
Okay, let's just take a short breather.
Hello, members. This is Chris. I have a cool news flash from the Untold Radio Network. Starting this May 2024, members of the Untold Radio Network will be receiving special after-hours show content notifications, plus a chance once a year to hang out on camera in a webinar setting with your favorite podcast personality. And because we have 12 different shows, it means that each month you will get to meet different podcast hosts. This face-to-face meeting will allow you to discuss anything, ask questions, offer content suggestions, and get to know all of our hosts personally. Plus talk to them face-to-face through the magic of YouTube Live. Again, this is for members only. And don't worry, you will be notified well in advance of a simple sign-up reservation for that particular host or hosts. Plus, member-only after-hour shows will be available in our reserved members-only section on YouTube. Each podcast will be producing at least one after-hour show or more per year, and one webinar meet and greet per year. We sincerely thank you for being a loyal listener of your favorite Untold Radio Network shows and becoming a loyal member. Other perks include you getting top priority in chat, guest interactions, plus getting the answers to your great questions from our hosts and guests. There's even more perks to members, exclusive wallpapers, special discounts on books, merch, and more. So stay tuned for new announcements This is Chris, signing off from the Untold Radio Network. We will be talking soon.
Well, I really wonder
Can you imagine
who is Chris?
a private
Don't
audience
tell me
with
Chris
me?
is AI.
Can you imagine a private audience with
It'd
me?
be rather scary. It really would. You know what? There's
Anyway.
lots of great shows. The
I
new
know.
Paranormal Spectrum by Barnaby is an
Cab?
incredible show, and it's not getting the views that it needs to
that
get.
it should be getting.
Cab, calling all
calling all.
beings. Can you be DJ? Those beautiful ladies.
Yeah.
What a show that is.
Yeah.
That is really the sine qua non.
Yeah.
And Tim and Dana are finally back, the influencers.
Yep.
We've missed them deeply.
We have.
Look,
Dean Bertram and his
Dr. Dean is just
Yeah.
profound. And
Yeah.
he's working. I mean, if Keyhoe is the founding father of ufology,
Mm-hmm.
then certainly Ray Palmer is the man that gave us Flying Saucers.
Yeah.
All his great magazines. But anyway, they can battle it out at some stage.
Well,
Dean
they're
is
all
working
dead now anyway, so
on
it
a
doesn't really
sounding-
matter,
Oh,
does it?
don't
Well,
say
that's
that.
the truth.
Not dead in my heart, none of them.
Yeah, okay, whatever.
Okay. Now, James E. McDonald actually got to go through Keyhoe's thousands and thousands of interviews and reports. This man was in the field interviewing
Pretty
people.
meticulous with that
He
stuff,
was so
wasn't he?
meticulous.
Yeah.
He was bad financially.
Yeah.
I mean,
But-
people had actually evidently, Linda Powell had found out that they found checks that were
That
sent
hadn't
to
been
NICAP
cashed, yeah.
that had fallen at the back of the dress, and he
Well,
couldn't give
you
a
know.
damn. But he wasn't motivated
Well,
by
no,
money.
No, he wasn't. That's
And
the thing.
unfortunately, they threw him out of NICAP in
No, that's what
1970
it said.
because
Why didn't they
of
just
his
get him a
bad.
secretary or someone
For God's
to
sake,
organise that financial
Because
stuff?
he was brilliant as the
He was
face of
busy
media.
as the voice.
He
you
was
know,
the
the
face
voice.
of media.
Yep.
Let's have just a last word from that incredible man.
All right, now, let's go at it from another point of view, if I may, the Air Force point of view. They agree, undoubtedly, objects have been seen in the sky. But the Air Force has said time and time again, and this is a quote from Richard Horner, Assistant Secretary of the Air Force for Research and Development. All but a small percentage of these reports of unidentified flying objects have been definitely attributed to natural phenomena that are neither mysterious nor dire, end quote. Weather balloons, mirages, ordinary sky phenomena like meteors, airplanes themselves. What about that?
I'll answer that, but I'd like to make several points doing it. In 1947, the Air Technical Intelligence Center at Dayton, the top Air Force intelligence men and scientists under contract, sent a secret document to the commanding general of the Air Force saying that whatever these things were, they were real. In 1948, ATIC, the same group, sent a top secret estimate to the commanding general, Hoyt Vandenberg, said these were interplanetary spaceships. In 1952, there was an intelligence analysis of the maneuvers of these things, as seen by radar, triangulation, radar photographs, and in 1953, the Central Intelligence Agency and the Air Force had a special panel of scientists meet at the Pentagon to tell them what to do. And after they got through, this group said, you don't have proof that these things exist, not scientific proof, but you have a very strong circumstantial case. We suggest you quadruple the investigation, set up special observation posts, in the meantime, release everything you've got to the American people. Now, you've got 4 documents there that they've been sitting on all this time. Now, and they have been spending a lot of money investigating flying saucers. If they don't exist, why the money? Why do the intelligence teams rush out every time there's a sighting?
Exactly. It is Shakespearean. He who doth protest. There's a lot of noise. There's something happening. There's a signal happening there.
Yeah.
Could you actually go back to the cover of Leslie Powell's book? We need to make sure that people are aware of this book.
Interested in this,
they need
story.
to go to the Oz Files, Bill Chalker's blog page on Against All Odds. The incredible book. Let's have a look at this cover again.
Yeah.
You can probably pick
Against
that book up anywhere at the moment. And it is such a worthwhile biography. Read that book and you realize what we're living through now might feel a tiny bit more optimistic, but in reality,
it's
no different to what it was. This man was telling us.
Yeah.
And we can get rid of that still now, Aspasia. We just made people aware of it. Here's our little copy. I showed that before. And here is my original copy before it was redacted by the military by Ruppelt. And look at that. Look at the bookmark is an original ET postcard. Isn't that crazy?
What blasphemy.
This warehouse is full of ephemera, and we're on shaky ground, aren't we? We've just got news that we might have to...
We got to get out.
Well, it is frightening. We've been here for 22 years. We are hoarders buried alive.
Anyway.
And we'll probably have a breakdown. Sydney has become untenable to live in.
Anyway.
The prices are on.
Let's
not go into that. We just whispered that to you there.
Yeah. Okay.
I thought what we'd do, just to end it all off, and, you know, thank God someone's written a biography on this extraordinary researcher. I thought what we'd go to a section of the film that was removed later on, at the same time Ruppelt's book was rewritten, from UFO, The True Story of Flying Saucers, in which we have a look at Newhouse, an interview by him. But prior to that, let's look at a clearer grading of this footage. Know that this footage has been cut extensively because he was witnessing this over his head to begin with, so it was rather close. But listen to the Air Force. The Air Force are doing the analysis. Here they are, literally in 1956, telling you that this phenomena is real.
This one?
Yes, please. Now, we have to be patient with this, but in a moment we'll actually hear them talking from the film about the analysis of this, and then we'll go to an interview in the time from that film that was considered a docudrama, but it's far more a documentary than a drama whatsoever. UFO, The True Story of Flying Saucers.
This is from the UFO Postal Archive.
This is the Utah film as it was originally photographed.
The image structure and maneuvers definitely eliminate any kind of known aircraft.
This is where Chief Photographer Newhouse, in his excitement, changed exposure. He believed that by changing density and giving the film more contrast, he could clarify the objects. The single object that reversed its course. The bounce is due to handheld camera. Now we study the action of one section of the film. We stop the action. We move in.
Within a 5-mile range, aircraft could be determined. In excess of 5 miles, the speeds are greater than aircraft can achieve, except in straight-line speed runs. The movement here follows an elliptical or circular pattern. Microscopic examination reveals that the objects are well focused. Their size varies from 1/6 to 1/10 the size of the moon, as it appears to the naked eye. Their form is circular and sometimes elliptical. This fits the commonly used flying saucer description.
Observe the object in the upper left corner. We move in to study the action. The object upper left will go out of frame on widescreen projection. Observe the motion of the two objects upper right as we rock them back and forth. Now we move over and up on the frame to make a closer study of the object in the upper left corner.
Examine this object closely. Compare it with those objects you saw in the Montana film. These films were taken approximately 2 years apart, hundreds of miles apart.
We drop back to the original perspective and resume. Now the section of the film where photographer Newhouse changed exposure.
Weather conditions, together with the persistence and motion of the formations, eliminate the possibility of atmospheric mirages. Photogrammetric experiments have shown that the images cannot be associated with any kind of birds at any distance.
Stop. Now forward again.
So I know this film can seem fairly prosaic now, but we are looking at something that is so profound because the analysis is coming directly out of
We
the
drop
Air
back
Force.
to original perspective.
And it's film footage.
Yeah.
Now once again, and for the last time, the Utah film.
It could have been standard 8, it could have been 16 mil. I'm not sure what gauge it was. It looks like it could have been 16 mil.
It doesn't with any known balloon observation.
Standard 8. It would have been standard 8 back then, not super. It's a 16 mil split down the middle.
Standard time.
Now let's hear his testimony.
I was driving on U.S. Highway 30 South with my wife and our son Delbert and our daughter Ann. We were on our way from Washington, D.C. to Portland, Oregon on vacation before reporting to my new duty station at the Aviation Supply Depot, Naval Supply Center, Oakland, California. About 7 miles after we passed through Trail Mountain, Utah, my wife noticed a group of objects in the sky which she could not identify. I pulled over to the side of the road, stopped, got out, looked up and saw the objects. There were about 12 of them in a rough formation proceeding in a westerly direction. They were like nothing I'd ever seen before, although I've logged some 2,000 hours in the air. They were identical in appearance.
How would you describe these objects?
Like two saucers, one inverted over the other. I had no means of judging the altitude. It appeared to me to be about the size of B-29s at 10,000 feet.
Did you photograph them immediately?
I watched the objects for a few moments before getting my camera out of the suitcase. Then I lost more time getting film out of the second suitcase and loading the camera. When I first saw the objects, they were almost overhead. By the time I had the camera ready to go, they had moved to a considerably greater distance.
What kind of a camera did you use?
A 16-millimeter Bell & Howell Filmo Auto Loadmaster with the 3-lens turret. I selected a 3-inch lens and set it on f8 and focused at infinity.
Did you think of using slow motion?
No, the camera was set on 16 frames per second, and in the excitement of the moment, I didn't think to shoot at a greater rate, although that would have improved the coverage. I centered the viewfinder on the objects and made the first shot. Then I decided that if the sky were darker, the objects would show better. So I stopped the lens down to f16 and continued photographing. This proved to be a mistake, as the quality of the film would have been better had I left it at f8.
Did these objects remain together in a group at all times?
No. Toward the end, one object reversed its course and proceeded away from the rest of the group. I held the camera still and allowed this single object to pass through the field of view, picking it up again later in its course.
Did this single object return to the rest of the group?
No. I allowed it to pass through the field of view of the camera 2 or 3 times, and then it disappeared.
In what direction?
Over the eastern horizon.
What did you do then?
I turned, swinging the camera just in time to see the rest of the group disappear over the western horizon.
What was the weather?
The weather was bright and cloudless.
Visibility good?
The visibility was excellent.
How does this film you shot compare with what you saw with your naked eye? You have studied the film.
Yes, I've studied it. I'm very disappointed. The film falls far short of showing what I saw with the naked eye, due to the delay in getting the camera started and my error in exposure. If I'd had this camera in the seat beside me, loaded and ready to go, there'd be no need for questions. The Air Force would have the answer.
What is your full name, please?
Delbert Clement Newhouse.
And you are on active duty with the Navy?
Yes, sir, I am.
What is your official Navy rank?
My title is Chief Photographer. I'm a commissioned warrant officer, United States Navy.
How long have you been in the service?
21 years.
Now, is there anything you can add to the description of these objects?
They had a bright silvery color.
Can you describe some particular detail?
They had a metallic appearance. They seemed to be made of some kind of polished metal.
What we're looking at for here, people on audio, is the analysis. The objects appear to be a light source rather than reflected light. All the objects appear to be the same size and circular in shape. The general color of the object seems to be bluish white. If the distance is assumed to be 5 miles and the movement perpendicular to the line of sight, the average velocity noted is 653.5 miles. Likewise, at 2.5 distance, the average speed is 326 miles, 175. Generally, the movement implied appears to follow an elliptical or circular pattern within the group. While the objects remain unidentified, the following possibilities have been eliminated: balloons, aircraft, and birds. These films have never been before shown to the general public, declassified to that Clarence Green, Winston Jones film, Truth, the story, UFOs, the true story of flying saucers.
Yeah, so that was the interview with the guy who shot him, that film.
And look, I know that was difficult, and you're looking at that footage going, what are they on about? They're just lights in the sky.
But like you said, if he hadn't had delayed, and it was a 16 millimeter, and the film was in another case, and he had to load it. I mean, those things take ages to load.
They certainly do, but you know, there you
that
go.
He was able to get it.
Beautiful
anyway.
for analysis, 16 millimeter Bolex.
Yeah.
We had it confirmed there by the man who was their chief photographer. So come on.
Yeah.
I mean, as if he doesn't know what he's observing.
Exactly.
So what's old is new. What's new is old. 74 years later, the memory finally, thank you to Linda Powell, has been distinctly put together, pieced together beautifully. I believe we'll be reading that book soon. Go out and get yourself a copy. Against All Odds, the biography of Donald Keyhoe, incredible marine aviator and an extraordinary writer and one of the world's greatest researchers, and the man right at the forefront of the ET hypothesis and the military conspiracy surrounding
and the thorn
this phenomenon.
in the military's side.
Yeah, the thorn in the side.
Yeah.
There's several thorns today, but, you know, poor old Keyhoe had to go it alone.
Yeah.
People said that he was a bit, you know, quick-tempered, a bit temperamental. He must have been incredibly freely flustered. As you said, he needed a bevy of secretaries, not just one.
Yeah.
You have been on Untold Radio's Down South Anomalies. This episode is number 84. Haven't we been here before? Haven't we?
Yeah,
Donald Keyhoe, the father of ufology. Go and check out Bill Chalker's incredible blog page, The Oz Files, and his review of this book and its connection to the scientists here in Australia with that book featuring outer space.
Which one?
Sources from outer space.
Yeah,
and
okay.
the original
that paperback's falling to bits, isn't it?
It is not falling to bits. It's
give me a break. Look at it.
Yeah, don't break it anymore. It's old. It's an original relic.
Okay.
Like myself.
Okay.
Like we're becoming rapidly.
Hey, did you get down that thing that they found, that chest, that treasure chest?
No, we need to look at that. 3,000 years old. And
they found a treasure chest.
Yeah, the metals in it are all made from meteorite. So
yeah, right. Back in the day. We're going to do a bit more investigation on that and maybe have a bit more information for you next week.
Well, we are going to Loch Ness soon.
Oh, yes.
Yes. We're just waiting on Dick Dale to edit that. It's being
edited, the footage, and then we will do an interview with our man.
Please look at the other podcasts, extraordinary podcasts on the Untold Radio Network.
Very varied.
Incredibly varied, although at times the big hairy man gets a big look in, doesn't he?
We go from pillar to post, you know, the scope of what we're into and what we love to investigate and read about is just about anything that's interesting.
And look, we cannot thank our supporters, people that are in there being our moderators in the chat with the wrench. Lots of great wrench people. Catherine Fall, Feather Falls, John Ayres, Carolyn, Laurie. There's an incredible amount of wrench people now. Great moderators on this channel as well. Fair, well-minded, open-minded, and caring, calm, and loving. That's the way we love it. Okay, I think that's it for this week.
That's enough.
Episode 84.
I'm exhausted.
I hope next year's all right. The weather's been crazy out there. It's got very cold here. And tomorrow night I have to go and work as an undercover musical minister.
Really?
as I do.
Yeah,
I do my little act, The Death of a DJ. What do you
Yeah.
think of that act, Asper?
That's very interesting.
Yeah, it certainly is.
I just sit at a table if I do go there and pretend I don't know him.
Play a bit of anomalous music under the subgenre title of Witch House.
Yeah. Okay. We'll see you next week.
Absolutely.
Bye.